Hi everybody, just before we start this week's show, we know that Christmas is on the way, and if you are hoping to do any Christmas shopping for the fish fan in your life, then we have some last minute recommendations that will save your bacon and save Christmas.
Yes, my first bacon-saving recommendation is that you buy 2 books immediately by The Sanctuary by some randomer called Andrew Hunter Murray.
Yes,
it genuinely
me.
is pretty. That's this guy. Look, it goes against all my principles to say this. I don't even necessarily like the guy, but it really is a brilliant book. It's got amazing reviews. It's gripping. It's about this remote island owned by a mysterious billionaire. It's very twisty-turny thriller. It's fantastic. And once you've done that, go and buy The Theory of Everything Else by a certain Dan Schreiber. Very different kind of book. It's like getting inside Dan Schreiber's head, but in a really fun way. It's not as chaotic as you'd imagine. It's full of the amazing theories that geniuses have come up with that you definitely won't have heard of. It's a fascinating fact in every paragraph, basically. So get those.
Absolutely, and alternatively, you can get Christmas goodies from nosuchthingasafish.com. We have just launched 2 new t-shirts, along with lovely pin badges. You can identify other fish listeners in the wild/public by getting yourself one of these 2 things. There's also our lovely tour book from the recent tour we've just finished, which is a complete history and demonology and future guide to fish and all its iterations. They're all so much fun, and you can get them at nosuchthingasafish.com.
Yep, that's right. And now we will cease flogging presents to you and say, on with the show.
On with the podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, a weekly podcast coming to you from the QI offices in Covent Garden. My name is Dan Schreiber. I'm sitting here with James Harkin, Anna Tashinsky, and Andrew Hunter Murray, and once again we have gathered round the microphones with our 4 favorite facts from the last 7 days, and in no particular order, here we go. Starting with fact number 1, and that is Anna.
My fact this week is that many of the Muppets were designed and created by someone called Kermit Love, who had absolutely nothing to do with Kermit the Frog.
When you say he had nothing to do with Kermit the Frog, that's literal. It's not figuratively, I will have nothing to do with Kermit the Frog.
No, they had huge beef from the start. Yeah, big falling out.
I think huge beef was Mr. Snuffleupagus, wasn't it?
No, he wasn't involved in the making of him. So Kermit Love was a designer and builder of Muppets. He was most famous probably for doing Big Bird, was his big hit. But, lots of the other ones, Snuffleupagus, I think, Oscar the Grouch, the Cookie Monster. But Kermit was created about 10 years before he even thought about joining the Muppets. And they're just both called Kermit, which I think just must have been a more common name.
It was more
than it was.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there was one of the presidents had a son called Kermit, didn't he?
Yeah, Kermit Rose.
Right.
Theodore Roosevelt, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think he designed Big Bird. I think he helped to create the design. So there was a sort of drawing, and they couldn't make it work, and it just so many design flaws in it. So they needed Kermit to come in.
Co-designed.
He
designed.
He manufactured, I'd guess. Is
basically, Jim Henson would draw what he wanted, I guess, and then he'd give it to people like Kermit Love, who was the main person on Big Bird, and say, "Can you make this?" And then he'd try and make it as close as possible, I suppose. And
one thing about Kermit Love was that he had all this amazing experience of puppets and costumes before he joined the Muppet Show, obviously. So one of the things he'd worked on was spangling the girls at the Paris Lido. So ballet.
That's a euphemism, isn't it? Where were you last night? Were you spangling the girls at the Paris Lido?
Lido as well. It's such a weird word in English, but
Lido
is quite a common word.
Yeah, Lido's a very common word.
I don't think that it was an open air swimming pool.
No, that's the confusing.
So
he's not spangling girls who are paying £5 for a swim.
No, exactly. No, he was working with ballet dancers a lot of the time. So he worked for the New York City Ballet, and he specialised there on turning humans into half puppets.
Oh,
that was a big part of his.
And of course, that's what
work.
Big Bird is, right?
Right.
It's half human, half puppet. Unlike the other Muppets that are kind of actual classic puppets.
Exactly.
Well, Big Bird because there's a human inside you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan.
No, you're right. Sorry.
I think when the character dies one day, Big Bird, they should do a live autopsy, and all the Muppets freak out when they find a human inside.
The design that Henson sent apparently didn't have feathers. Kermit Love added those. But that's weird, isn't it, to have a bird without any feathers?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of any actual birds without feathers.
I don't think there are any.
A pterodactyl, I suppose, is the early,
no, I
A
guess,
pterodactyl isn't a bird.
No.
Dinosaurs are birds, and yet pterodactyls aren't.
That's the weird
it's
thing.
I
quite
guess think
flawed.
of Cookie Monster, right? Like, I know he's not feathered, but the material could look... I could imagine a big bird with that kind of felt material or whatever it is.
What
that
I
they
wondered
use.
is, the one birds that don't have feathers is really, really young pre-fledglings, like little chicks, right? So maybe he's a really baby, that big bird, and he will grow up into something even bigger.
Yeah, that's good.
Does he seem quite immature? Because I've never actually seen...
He's actually 6 years old, isn't he?
6 years old.
I love that. Yeah.
But there's an amazing detail that that Kermit Love went overseas to China for a filming, and they took Big Bird, and Big Bird, like the costume, because they were doing that, but Big Bird was given a seat on the plane. And because he's 6 years old, the Chinese airline charged him half price.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, no, what's fascinating about that is I can't believe that you used to get half-price tickets for children, because I am paying so much money anytime one of my million kids turns 2 years old.
Why don't you put the child in a Big Bird costume?
Fly them to China. Make it a big publicity thing, which is why they actually did this.
Exactly.
And then-
Yeah. You need more publicity. That's what
That's what I need.
Big Bird is in a way the opposite of Tinky Winky.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Can you work out why?
Well, Tinky Winky, giant purple
Yep.
Teletubby,
Yep.
famously gay,
Yeah.
carries a handbag.
Yep.
TV on his stomach.
Thank you.
Oh,
TV on it. You did all the legwork, James, and Anna sort of came in at the end.
I think I know Teletubbies too well, because they all have TVs on their stomachs, and I was going about what
You're right.
differentiates him from
Yes.
the other Teletubbies.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. I should have said the opposite of a Teletubby.
Yeah.
But it's that where Tinky Winky has a TV on the outside of his stomach, Big Bird has a TV on the inside of his stomach.
Really?
For the puppeteer to see what he's doing.
Wow.
Oh,
He
that
just
makes
needs
sense.
basically, and it's below. It's a small TV monitor, and he just has to look down at what is going on the monitor to see
That's
what's
so
going on
cool.
outside.
What I found, because I read that as well, but what I read didn't go into any more details. It said so he could see the set, and I couldn't work out whether the TV would be giving you a projection from Big Bird's eyes, in which case you'd have to have cameras in his eyes, which I don't think he does,
Yeah.
or you're seeing the actual set, as in you're seeing yourself from like the third person.
Good
I
call.
think so.
And that must be difficult, right?
Yeah.
To know where to walk if you're seeing yourself on TV.
Yeah, you'd have
Yes.
to you'd have to invert left and right, wouldn't you?
That's probably the least of your problems. I don't know, really. But
It's like being
Wow.
a ghost when you leave your own body after you die and then you look back at it.
Oh,
Yeah.
But then
yes.
you can't. It's not like you have to control your body then, so you don't have the difficulty.
that's why ghosts always walk through walls, because they don't know which way they're going, and they're like, "Oh shit, I just walked through a wall."
Just very quickly back to Kermit Love. So one of the innovations that he brought to the design of Big Bird was molting. So he allowed for the feathers to drop off Big Bird, so it looked like, I don't know, like they were real feathers that could
Makes
fall off,
sense,
which was
right?
really, really
Makes
nice.
it look real.
And he used 6,000 dyed feathers from a domestic white turkey, not a single one, a few of them, in order to make the suit.
Oh, the
initially.
suit's made of actual turkey
I
feathers.
think in the initial period,
That's
it's probably
interesting.
very different now.
Kermit Love, he usually spoke with a fake English accent,
Yeah.
sometimes with a fake French accent.
I do the fake English accent thing.
Like, yeah, you're
I've been
actually,
doing it
where are
for
you from?
I'm from Guatemala.
Are you? And how do they speak normally?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go.
You can't
give up
break
the accent
character
now.
after this long. He made Big Bird with a guy called Christopher Lyle,
Yeah.
who he was in a relationship with for over 50 years. So I think from before they started making Big Bird together, right? Until
Yeah.
Kermit died in 2008.
Yeah.
Christopher Lau was in the pilot for the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
So
Really?
like
Was
right
he?
at the very,
He was
very
right at the
start.
beginning.
Yeah.
I looked at his IMDb because I thought, oh, what a cool guy. He seems like Christopher Lyle. And it led me to a fact that I didn't know, which is there were two pilots for The Muppet Show. So one, very kid-friendly. The second pilot was called The Muppet Show, Sex and Violence. That was the second ever Muppet pilot. And
Did you see what it was about?
I couldn't find too much information on it, actually.
Well, it was a parody of the fact that there was starting to get lots of sex and violence on television, so people were complaining, and so they were parodying lots of different things that were happening on TV at the time.
Okay, right.
So it's not fully.
It
it's
wasn't.
not-
there wasn't.
Yeah.
Still not an expected
Still sounds like it's
title.
not for 6-year-olds.
Big Bird wasn't banging Mr. Snuffleupagus.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'd expect.
The
I'd be
feathers were flying.
disappointed. Yeah.
The other thing is how physically injurious it is to be a Muppeteer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this is partly because of something. Oh! I've got another quiz link.
Yeah.
Why did you just interrupt yourself then?
It's going to be very hard to edit around
You're
that.
absolutely right.
What's the quiz link?
What you need to know? So what we.
I feel like we missed a lot of steps in your head there.
Yeah.
Andy, you need to calm down.
No, I'm so excited to be talking about Muppets. I love the Muppets so much.
Do you?
There's one link between Muppets and something that we covered recently, which is Disneyland. When Jamie was on, we mentioned Disneyland, right?
Yeah.
And there's a link between Disneyland and the world of the Muppets.
And the world of the Muppets.
Yeah.
Okay.
I prefer that you don't mention shows when I wasn't there.
Oh, is it something about the acknowledgement of characters in real life? You have to talk to them as if they're real.
No, that's not it.
I think you said you started off that sentence before you had a stroke, and you were talking about the puppeteers.
Yes.
So it's something to do with the puppeteers.
Something to do with the puppeteers.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, they have a secret tunnels.
I'm going to say that's it. Muppet Filming Land
Yeah.
is actually on the first floor. It's about 8 feet above the ground, so that the Muppeteers can stand upright. But the problem is, some of the Muppeteers are quite short, so then they need to wear platform shoes to get them up to the level that they've been brought up to. And this brings me back to the point about Muppeteers also being physically injured. So the guy who plays Gonzo the Great, he's still going, actually. He's had to have 4 shoulder operations just due to holding up your hand all the time and doing a hip replacement, and you're cramped.
The sacrifices people make, it's heroic.
It is.
Guys, when you're operating a Muppet mouth, imagine you're doing that with your arm Muppet.
Yeah.
Show me what you do. I know you can't see this at home, but you've all got it wrong.
Oh,
You're
so
joking.
Whatever you're doing at home, we reckon
That's
that's
what
probably
we're doing,
wrong as well, right?
I think it's unlikely
Well,
you've
you're
got it
doing
right at home.
I'm doing a mouth with my hand. We all are.
But the key is that how mouths move, guys? What bit of your mouth do you move when you're talking?
Your lips.
My tongue.
Which lip?
Is
You
it the
move-
bottom?
It's
Is
only
it
your
you
bottom
moving your
that
jaw?
moves.
So you say you move only the bottom.
You move only your thumb. This is what one of the operators said. I was watching an interview with him. He said, you've got to keep your top of your hand still and you move only your thumb.
Such a good point. Hello, everybody. Yeah, that does not work.
It's Pac-Man. That's how Pac-Man moves, right?
Does Pac-Man have... Yes, he uses the
Because
tooth
Pac-Man's
upper.
going... Yeah.
We've got an aerial view, most likely, of Pac-Man's
Well, why
head.
is he sideways?
Yeah, that doesn't make any
I'm about
sense.
to blow this thing wide open. Yeah, well...
Is he
if we look-
grinding along the floor?
If
on
we've
the
got
side
an
of his
aerial
face?
view, he's just on the floor sideways, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's a disembodied head, right? Like, he's
Yeah,
not
so why is he
human.
sideways? We shouldn't be able to see anything of his mouth movement from
He should
above.
just be a circle.
Yeah.
No, unless he's from a species with a sideways mouth. What are you talking
Oh,
about?
you think he has a mouth on the side of his head?
Possibly. He's an alien.
He's an alien.
Well, he's alien. He's not a human.
A man implies human, I
Wait,
think.
no, sorry. In later illustrations, he has legs, shoes, arms, and gloves. So, yeah. he'd
Like
have
the
legs
M&Ms, like the
Yeah,
cartoon
more like
M&Ms.
them.
Just like that.
Also wearing gloves. Very
Same universe.
Clearly they're related.
Wait, am I thinking of the yellow M&M?
Oh, bloody hell, Dan.
Dan.
You are, aren't you?
Might be. No, I'm pretty sure Pac-Man has
they
legs.
did cartoons as well of Pac-Man,
Yeah.
didn't they? In the 90s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it because... do they have to have the gloves because it's weird seeing his hands? Like, gloves are kind of effectively a sort of...
Well, the same as Mickey Mouse, right?
Yeah, why
Gloves.
does he have gloves?
Well, yeah.
Why are all
It's
these...
easier to draw.
He's always at a crime scene.
He's a snooker referee in his spare time, Mickey Mouse, isn't he?
Oh, boy! What a shot!
That's not what referees do.
They're not hype men. Good on you, mate.
Stop the podcast!
Stop the podcast.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to let you know that No Such Thing as a Fish is sponsored this week by Squarespace.
That's right. Squarespace is the place where if you have a brilliant idea you want to share with the world, for instance, you want to set up a rival moss company to start flogging your own moss and put Andy out of business, if you want to attract people to your business, which involves recruiting people to hunt the Yeti, to put Dan out of business, anything like that, start your own website and go to Squarespace to do so.
There are so many good features on Squarespace that allow you to make your website really pop. You can have a member area so that special Moss devotees can get access to gated content. You can have a video studio where you create professional level videos of Moss effortlessly. You can run email campaigns so that you can send out any news and views from the Moss community and get those out to your loyal customers. Squarespace can do it all for you.
It can. So whether it's Moss or whether it's maybe something else you're into, get to squarespace.com. And if you go to squarespace.com/fish, you'll get a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code FISH to save 10% of your first purchase of a website or domain.
That is right. Just go to squarespace.com/fish for that free trial. And when you're ready, use the offer code FISH and you'll get 10% off.
And once you're done doing that, you should know that we're also sponsored today by LinkedIn Talent Solutions.
We certainly are. LinkedIn is the place to go to hire someone for your business.
Yep. Do you keep accidentally hiring dead wood? Do you keep ending up with these total burdens like just some people that randomly spring to mind in my life? If you do, you need to get to LinkedIn Jobs because it will help you find the perfect person for whatever job you need.
You can screen candidates using simple screening questions like, are you too interested in one topic, one specific thing? And you can knock out people who have the wrong skills and experience and get people who have what your business actually needs.
Yes, and you can also add a purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and that immediately spreads the word that you're hiring. And this is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs the #1 place in delivering serious quality hires. So get to LinkedIn Jobs and post your job for free at linkedin.com/fish now.
That's right, you can post a free job by going to linkedin.com/fish. Do it now.
On with the show.
On with the podcast.
Okay, it is time for fact number 2, and that is Andy.
My fact is that the German army has just had to tear out some of the size labels from their new uniforms because they read small, short, or SS. Yeah.
Oversight.
Yeah.
It's an
A
oversight.
lot of small, short people in the German army. Or?
Well, not that many, but
Yeah.
but one is too many to have the SS label in their clothes.
Agreed.
So, yeah, most of them were small, medium, large, and extra large, and that's fine. But the SS stands for the Schutzstaffel, who were the Nazi paramilitary organisation who largely ran the Holocaust, and it is literally illegal to display their symbols in Germany.
Yeah.
So the German Defence Ministry had ordered the soldiers to tear out the SS lettering. I mean, they weren't on display either. It was literally just a size label inside.
Unless you're wearing it inside out, which often, if you get up in the dark, put your clothes on, that's suddenly on
I think
display.
that's an offence on the parade ground, though, to have your uniform inside out. I don't know much about military discipline, but I imagine...
Imagine they say, get down and give me 10 if you do that. Yeah, pretty sure.
They said if you cut it out, that's one thing. But if it's got important information on it, what you should do is cut around the SS. So just lose the
They
actual...
didn't say that.
Yeah,
Did they?
So it's still the shape of an S and an S.
What important information
Well,
is
the
going to be
washing
on an
instructions.
yeah.
What if you accidentally put it in at 60?
No one's ever read those on any item of clothing.
Excuse me, Anna, strong disagree. It's my regular reading.
Regular reading. When you get a new shirt, I can't wait to read this.
Can I ask, what is the German for small short? Because presumably it's SS in German.
Well, that would be KK, which is Klein Klein.
So how come? Is it English?
I think the
Anglicised?
supplier would have been English language, and that's
Right.
why it was a problem.
KK is still awkward, isn't it? Because you do feel, you sense that
Especially
lingering third K.
If you're a really, really small soldier and you're a KKK, that is a problem.
I didn't realize that, though, about the SS being a combination of words that is banned in certain places. Like, one of the things which was in the article that you sent around, Andy, was that SS on number plates is not allowed in most spots in Germany. So,
Is that right?
Yeah, so you can't have SS, you can't have KZ because that references concentration camps, you can't have HJ because that's the Hitler Youth, you can't have...
sorry.
Yeah, because there are German words. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it makes sense. But,
But HJ is also a rude thing.
I like hand job, he's thinking.
What's hand job in German, though?
Oh, you're testing my GCSE German now. It actually didn't come up either in the GCSE.
Not in the oral.
I found some German military uniforms which are literally made of cardboard, which is an interesting thing.
interesting.
Nice.
And it's not in Germany. It's in Namibia, which was a German colony until after the First World War. And there is a group of people living there, the Herero tribe. And I think they were, like a lot of colonised peoples, treated pretty badly.
Genocide, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, all the way to
One
genocide.
of the worst ways to be treated.
Yes. Well, the Herero people now wear a lot of Edwardian European, specifically German clothing for traditional rituals and for special days and things like that. So if you go to a Herero funeral, the women will be wearing Edwardian dresses that were popular in Germany in 1910, and the men will be wearing uniforms that are, some of them made of cardboard, because they've been replicated to be exactly like the fashions of that time.
And it was really similar to the Bolivian cholitas that we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And also it was the women who adopted this first. By some way, I think they adopted the European style of dress. But then, much like the cholitas, they made it much more full of bright colours, like the clothes that they wore. So yeah, they've got these beautiful hybrid Edwardian dresses and with these colourful colours on them.
That's awesome.
Do you know Germany gave Namibia $1.35 billion in a couple of years ago, I think it was. I just thought that was very interesting when people talk about compensating.
Oh, yeah.
In compensation, they said this was a genocide and his $1.5 billion to develop. So
I wonder
1.35.
what you get in the Herero embassy whenever you go there.
Wait, I don't get it.
So, what do you get
What
when
do you
you're
get?
at an embassy party? There's someone going around with a tray.
There we go.
Yeah, I get it. I get
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Box of Quality Street.
Did you? Have we mentioned this about French military uniforms and Napoleon and the baguette?
Yeah. Supposedly the baguette was invented so you could hide it in your
Oh,
trousers.
that's
or
right. Yeah, we have talked about that.
Have
Yeah,
we?
sort of
Okay.
like hidden down the inside.
So that it would just fit
Yeah.
into the trouser pockets of the army uniform. I just couldn't remember if we'd.
Can I just say, while we're talking about Napoleon, and we might not keep all this in anyway because we have mentioned it before, but this morning I was reading a book about cannibalism, and there was a nursery rhyme in it, and it went this apparently was a genuine nursery rhyme. Baby, baby, naughty baby, hush you squalling thing, I say, peace this moment, peace, or maybe Bonaparte will pass this way. And he'll beat you, beat you, beat you, and he'll beat you all to pap, and he'll eat you, eat you, eat you, every morsel, snap, snap, snap.
Not sure about this bedtime story you're reading to your daughter.
And I will be appearing on CBeebies tomorrow evening for the bedtime story.
So yeah, they made the uniform so you could put a baguette in your pocket, and then you could always do the joke: "Is that a gun in your pocket, or is it
Hungry.
just like a sandwich?" Yeah.
Have you read about how modern military uniforms in America are progressing at the moment?
No.
They're turning them basically into computers, which means that anything that happens on your outfit can be reported back to base. So if you're shot, your suit will know with a spot because it can sense a change.
Are the computers good enough that they can, if the soldier's been shot, can the computer make the soldier keep running, basically?
Oh, that'd be
Not
kinda
yet.
like
See, that's
RoboCop.
yeah,
Like
like a
RoboCop.
RoboCop.
Yeah,
No, we
yeah.
haven't got to RoboCop yet.
Okay.
But it can tell GPS. It can tell literally the liquid level of like how much heat you're exerting and how like if you're in trouble or whatever. Like it's just got all the information. All the data is now being collected.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Makes
and
sense.
I don't know if they can send it right back overseas. I think
if you can send it over the internet from one place to
Yeah.
another, it could probably go all the way around the world.
that's not how the internet
You need
works.
a
Dave.
long cable.
This guy.
Everyone's attached to the Pentagon with a massive cable.
It's like a dog lead.
Pull them out. Someone literally pulls them all out.
I don't know how reassuring it is if someone says to you, "Here's your suit," and the good thing is when you get shot multiple times in the chest, we'll have a computer back home that knows exactly where you've been
It is,
shot.
because there's a thing called the golden hour after a soldier's been injured, which is the time to really, where you're most likely to save their life. And there's also a thing I think called something like the platinum 5 minutes, which is
wow.
even
Ooh.
more, like you can do absolutely the most help to save their life. And
Wow.
And there's the diamond 5 seconds
Well,
where you just put your arm in, pull the bullet out, and it's like nothing happened.
So why do you think the SAS had so many condoms in the first Gulf War?
Okay.
Is it to do with burns? Only because we were
Water.
once told to bring condoms to stop burning, but Dan's got it.
It's water. Yep. They took loads of condoms because they can hold about a litre of water each, and if you're on the run, it's very useful. If you pass a stream, quickly fill up your condoms with water.
Yeah.
You've got a litre of water there.
Will
Yeah.
taste quite spermicidal.
Yeah.
It might be one of the strawberry ones. Might get lucky. But then, so that kind of led me on to this. In 1991, the British Army ordered 500,000 bespoke camouflage condoms.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Can you tell me why?
Well,
Sand coloured.
sand colour.
For the Gulf War, that was
Yeah.
If you forget to do up your flies after you've been to the loo, you're always wearing a camouflage condom, so it doesn't matter.
You lie down in the sand with only your penis sticking out, but you don't want anyone to shoot it, so you have to cover it in a condom.
It's the periscope. It's the
Right.
It's for the rifles.
To cover the rifles
It's
to
to-
stop any water getting in.
Yeah, and sand
sand,
in the
yeah,
tip. It can be seriously debilitating if you're firing a rifle.
At the end of World War One in New York City, they had a tower of 12,000 pickle halbers, which are those kind of helmets with a spike on top, like old German helmets. It was like a victory parade. They got a massive pyramid of these helmets in the middle of New York, and then they sold them off. But the idea was, look, we've won the war and we've got all these trophies and whatever. Now, the thing is that the Germans didn't really use these helmets. They used them in the 19th century, but then they were really phased out during the start of the 20th century, and they were completely replaced in 1916 by steel helmets because they're made of leather, the ones with the spike on. They don't help you really.
And they're
in any way.
conspicuous as well. If you're in a
They're
trench
conspicuous.
and just you can see a spike moving back and forth. Yeah,
They're no use. They were replaced by steel helmets, but they had all these old ones, so they put them in an old warehouse, and then the Americans captured the warehouse, took all the helmets out, and then showed them as these are our spoils of war, as if they'd taken them from the soldiers, but they'd taken them from an old thing.
Very clever.
And the reason you had the spike is because it's from the older days. You might have a big plume on the side, like a ceremonial helmet, and that was kind of the spike would hold the plume.
I was wondering if it was the old Ben Franklin lightning rod hat.
I didn't realise. Loads of other armies have them.
Oh yeah, today they have them.
Yeah,
fact,
so the British Household Cavalry used to have a spike, the US Marine Corps, Russian,
All for
Swedish.
plume purposes? Is that the...
I think almost all,
Yeah.
yeah. But the Prussian army had changed theirs in 1844. They ended in a ball because people kept on sort of injuring their horses or
How
damaging
interesting,
equipment or
because
whatever.
then the thing with the lightning rods was you had the spike versus the ball as well.
Oh,
didn't you?
yeah. And maybe lightning kept happening. It's unclear. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, today I think ceremonially only, but you would see them in South America, I think, or
Yeah.
the Romanian army maybe.
Oh, back in Guatemala, they're 10 a penny. You see them every day.
Have you guys ever seen the Landsknecht mercenaries? Pictures of drawings of these?
Not sure.
These were Germans who fought between the 1400s and the 1600s. They made up the majority of the Holy Roman Empire. They were like the elite fighting force. So they were using mostly pikes and crossbows, but they also used these things called Zweihenders, which were swords that were way taller than the soldier himself. So they look like they're carrying... I mean, you have to carry them over your shoulder, and it looks ridiculous.
What's the point? It must have been way too heavy to wield.
I
surely.
know. I think the idea was you could basically get at your enemy because your sword was longer, but I think it wasn't that practical in the
You
end.
could think in the really early days of warfare, when all you had was a sword,
Yeah.
having a slightly longer sword than your enemy would be an advantage.
Yeah. And then it's
that's
an
just
arms
gonna-
race.
Yeah. Eventually you got a mile-long sword.
That was what the arms race was. Isn't that so sweet? Back in the day, the arms race was just adding a centimetre after
To
a
your arm.
centimetre to your arm.
You'd breed soldiers with super long arms, if actually. You know, Mr.
did.
Tickle, in his time, was a ferocious warrior.
He had to donate sperm every month, didn't he, for this new legion? He was very good at donating sperm. It was very easy for him, obviously.
I would think it would be quite awkward if you're Mr. Tickle, because it's easy to reach things a long way from you, but your own penis is...
Yeah, you're so right.
I don't think we've got any data about Mr. Tickle's penis, though. Was it, is everything that long and tickly?
Okay, it is time for fact number 3, and that is my fact. My fact is that in 2015, the actor Vicki McClure was kicked off the Vicki McClure Tram for not having a ticket. So,
I think she shouldn't have to have a ticket if the tram's named after her.
turned out she didn't need to have a tram ticket, just the ticket inspector didn't realise that and kicked her off for fare evasion. So Nottingham is where this tram is, and it's the Nottingham Express Transit, and they have a lot of trams that have a lot of local hero names on it. Vicki McClure. And
Who is she, sorry?
So Vicki McClure is an actor. You might have seen her in Line of Duty. You might have seen her in The Replacement. You might have seen her. She's
The replacement bus journey.
she's a very
She's an actor.
big
She's a
British
big deal.
actor. Yeah,
Yeah.
huge deal.
Yeah,
She is, yeah.
And so in 2015, she was offered this for it to be named after her. She accepted it. She was very excited. She brought her mother along to the ceremony. She sort of officially unveiled it, got onto the tram for the inaugural ride, and then the conductor said, "Where's your ticket?" And she said, "Well, I don't have one. I'm Vicki McClure." And he said, "Yeah, we're all Vicki McClure. Get off."
Wow.
And yeah,
Nottingham has
man.
a lot of trams named
There's
after
a
people. There's not a Nottingham. So I'm going to say a few names. Martin Polyakov, scientist.
yes,
Big deal scientist. D.H. Lawrence,
yes.
Okay.
sex writer. Cricketer Stuart Broad.
Yeah.
Torvill and Dean. I don't know if that's one tram or two, actually.
It's one.
It's one, yeah.
Shame.
Yeah.
Didn't
Who
we
gets
once
the front
say-
half and who gets the back half?
Trams.
Trams. Okay. Did you know that there's an annual tram competition every year?
We sure did.
Tell us
Pretty
more.
exciting. So every year there is the European Tram Driver Competition, which is a competition which sees tram drivers from all over Europe gathering together to compete against each other to find the greatest tram driver of all. They do things like trams billiards, they do tram bowling. So tram bowling would be, you've got giant pins that are at the end of a little track, and you've got a tram racing down, and two people are holding the ball, and it nudges the ball, and it tries
And
to
it's
knock.
a huge inflatable ball. It's
Yeah.
not your average bowling ball.
No.
I think what's interesting is that's quite obvious what that would be. But tram
Yeah.
billiards, on the other hand,
Good point.
which you haven't explained.
No.
I can tell you what tram billiards is.
Yeah.
Tram billiards doesn't bear that much relation to actual billiards.
Okay.
But it looks like a really boring spectator sport. It is where a tram goes very slowly and cautiously towards a table, which has got lots of scores written on it. And coming out of the table is kind of a channel with a little ball at the end. And the tram nudges into the channel and knocks the ball onto the table. And whatever score the ball lands on.
Oh, so it's shuffleboard. Shuffleboard
like
is
shuffleboard.
Or
yeah,
shove
yeah.
halfpenny,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like that.
But there are more exciting events than that. Even more exciting.
No.
There's stopping within 20 centimeters of a cone without hitting it.
Yeah, pretty
That's
cool.
good.
What does that entail?
Accelerate to exactly 30 kilometers an hour without a speedometer. That's pretty good.
How do they remove the speedometer from the... Because
I don't know.
That's like quite a
It
technical
does-
thing.
I think you put some black masking tape over it or something.
That's not what it
right?
says. It says without the speedometer.
Yeah, yeah. They have to commission hundreds of new trams every year just for this. It's a nightmare.
Huge
It's the
waste
most
of
expensive
money.
sport in Europe.
So trams. When I was reading about this, I realised trams were much more revolutionary than I had realised. And I think we say that a lot, but it is true. So they were the way that you got around for about 100
They
years.
still are in some places.
But there wasn't other options, or there weren't many other
Horses?
options. So they took over from horse and carts, really. So the first trams were horse-drawn, of course. The first horse car was 1807, the Swansea and Mumbles Railway.
So those are, just to be clear on what a tram is, it's on tracks, but it shares space with the road
Yes.
at some
Yeah.
points, whereas
Yes.
a train is on tracks, but it has its own complete space. You don't-
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Swansea and Mumbles Railway actually was commissioned in 1804 and just carried goods and freight, and lots of kids used to hitch rides on it to get from Swansea to Mumbles. And so they thought, well, maybe we should make this a passenger thing. And so that became the first passenger one. And then there were sort of no other trams for about 50 years.
And then George Train came along.
George
Yeah.
Train blundered
Brilliantly
in.
named George Train. He went into trams.
Yeah.
And he made one in Birkenhead. And he invited all the crown heads of Europe to the grand opening, and none of them came.
Oh, really?
Wow.
It's Birkenhead. It's quite hard to get to.
Oh,
anyway.
okay. Fair enough.
But we've
Especially
invited
from-
all the crowned heads of Europe to our Christmas show, which is coming up in a few days
Oh,
at time of
hopefully they'll be
recording.
there.
I think they will be there. Yeah. And he founded the football team, didn't he? Tranmere Rovers.
Brilliant.
No,
a
sorry.
Birkenhead joke. Amazing.
Was it?
That's where Tranmere are from, Birkenhead.
I've got to be honest.
Okay.
I did not intend that.
That is an extraordinary coincidence.
Yeah.
Well done.
Because it was such a shockingly bad joke that I thought there must have been something extra there.
So did I.
Wow.
And there was.
So James did all the work to make that work. That's great.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then he started one in London, George Train.
Yeah.
Went from Marble Arch to Bayswater, and it was very popular. Lots of people used it, apart from anyone who lived nearby, because there were lots of really, really posh houses around there, and anyone who lived there had to cross over the line to get to Hyde Park. They were just walking across. Now they had to get past the tram line, and people would just smash it up.
The tram lines were raised, weren't they? And it was a
Yeah.
complete pain in the bum to walk around,
Yeah.
to walk over and all of this.
It was
Yeah.
really bad.
In 1952, all the trams were, all the final trams left London and the tracks were torn up and all of this. And this is a cool thing. The final journey of the trams went from Woolwich to New Cross, and it took 3 extra hours to normal because of the crowds cheering it along the way. It's so sweet. And the driver of the final tram, this is so nice, it was a guy called John Cliff, who was the deputy chairman of London Transport, and he had started his career as a tram driver 52 years before, and he got to drive the final one.
Lovely.
Which is just like that, you know, that Frasier thing where they
No.
there's so in the first episode someone brings in Martin's horrible chair,
Right.
and when Fraser's dad is moving in, and then in the final ever episode 11 years later that a removal man comes in to take a chair away,
Right.
and it's the same removal man.
And that's
Really?
the best example you could think of someone going through their whole career doing
Well, it's the most relatable one, isn't it? We all know it. It's going to be understood. All our audience.
George Train was later declared a lunatic and arrested for reading the scripture in support of Victoria Woodhull, the suffragette.
When trams went electric, that was a huge step. They were horse-drawn for ages.
Was it accepted, or was it like Dylan going electric?
People preferred the acoustic trams for a long time. They went electric in Britain in the sort of 1880s and 1890s, and so now we tend to have trams with the cables above, but they used to be under the ground. That was a bit of an issue because then the rails would be electrified, so if you stepped on them, that was a problem. So they had this cool system called contact studs, which is where basically along the tram rail you'd have these big metal studs, and they were connected to an electricity supply underground, but they would be switched off and they would be triggered to switch on when the tram ran over them by a magnet on the tram.
Brilliant.
It sounds brilliant. They were really unreliable, and they often stayed live. So what you had to do with the contact studs was employ street urchins often to go and stand on the rails and say, look, we think this is not live anymore, but could you just step on that rail?
What?
Are you
Check.
joking?
No.
This is a complicated electrical job. We need an urchin to do it. What? That's
No, because they were just testing it. They were literally there to see if they got electrified.
And
What?
how badly would they be electrified?
Pretty bad. Like horses would sometimes leap up and then drop down stone dead.
Why didn't they use a horse?
They should have used a horse.
They were all
shouldn't
out of work.
terrific.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
bad.
must say, I grew up near Manchester and they have trams there, and I was always worried that they might be electrified and didn't want to stand on the
Oh, on the-
tracks
the-
in
yeah,
case
yeah.
they were. I'd seen so many urchins go up.
Can I tell you one cool thing about tram design? And
Yeah.
I need to guess why it exists. So they would have old trams would have spiral staircases, so you get up to the top
Oh, yeah,
level.
I've been on one.
Yep, and you've got a driver. That's my clue. Picture
Sorry.
the driver.
Is the driver on the top, like an old horse and cart where you'd have
No,
okay,
bottom.
okay.
He's at the bottom.
Okay.
And there was one step on the spiral that's full of little holes. Why do you think it's full of little holes?
Did he have shoes which he could click in like a piece of Lego
Oh, very clever.
into and then he's stuck fast and he wouldn't fall over when it went round the corner?
But if he's driving, is that for the conductor, for
I was
example?
thinking conductors more.
Yeah.
It's related to the conductor, but it's
okay.
about if the conductor is a pervert.
Oh,
What?
so
You're so excited.
no, but I just thought of
Spiral staircase looking up women's skirts.
You bang on.
Oh.
So this was, so you're sort of there if I'd asked you a follow-up question. Basically, the holes are there because the driver needs to be able to see over his left shoulder, and the stairs block his view unless you put holes in. So there were holes in one step so he could look over his left shoulder. But they always came with a screen that you could pull down, and that was because if the tram's going the other way and the conductor's at the stairs end, he can look through the holes at ladies' ankles.
Ankles, oh no.
Ankles, even worse than up the skirts in those days.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're an urchin
Yeah.
and they wanted you to kind of stand on this electrical thing, do you think they tricked you by saying, do you want to be a conductor? And you said, we'll just stand on these.
Stop the podcast.
Stop the podcast.
Hi, everybody. We are sponsored this week by GiveWell.
Yep, GiveWell is something that I've been using for years and years. I really think everyone should. If you want to make a charity donation, how can you feel totally confident that the money you're donating is making a big impact, that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck? The only way you can do that, except spending years of your life researching it yourself, is going to GiveWell, and they've done the research for you.
They absolutely have. GiveWell spend tens of thousands of hours, 30,000 hours each year researching charitable organisations, and it directs funding to the highest impact opportunities they've found. And they're backed by evidence. People all around the world have used GiveWell to donate over $1 billion to charity. So if you want to make a difference with your donation, GiveWell is the place to go.
It really is. I cannot recommend it enough. It's the real sensible way to give to charity. So get to givewell.org/UK now. And GiveWell UK is a registered UK charitable incorporated organisation, and so eligible UK taxpayers are able to take tax deductions for donations given.
That is right. So go to givewell.org/UK to find out more or make a donation.
Okay, on with the show.
On with the podcast.
Okay, it is time for our final fact of the show, and that is James.
Okay, my fact this week is that because nobody can decide where it was invented, there's currently a split in the banana split world.
Brilliant. Some people say Croatia, don't they?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. There was also the banana Zagreb and the banana Dubrovnik. No. So yeah, 2 places in America, basically. In fact, we might come on to there was also a third pretender, but mainly 2 places in America. A place called Wilmington, Ohio, and Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And Wilmington say that it was invented by a guy called E.R. Hazard, who supposedly came up with banana splits, which is basically you take a banana, you split it in half, you put ice cream in the middle of it. He supposedly invented it to attract students to his shop, but they reckon that he did it in something like 1907 or 1908, and yet there is a lot of evidence that they existed before that. So
Right.
No one's having a go at Wilmington or anything, but it seems very unlikely
But
that they are the real ones.
You're taking a side here. You think it was the other one.
I actually think that possibly it was neither, but certainly of these 2, I think Latrobe, Pennsylvania definitely has the better claim, because they have evidence that there was a guy called David Strickler, sometimes William Strickler. Different newspaper articles have different names, but he definitely was making them around 1904, 1905. We have evidence that he was buying these banana-shaped glass things.
I wonder if we know, because Strickler is really celebrated there.
Oh, yeah.
Why do we not know his first name?
I think we probably do, and I think one person made a mistake, and then that mistake has kind of gone through.
Right.
But yeah, if you look, in fact, even like newspaper articles relatively close to the time, some of them call him William and some of them call him David. It's so weird.
That's
So
just
are they
like-
split over what his first name is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I read that basically he'd made a special boat-shaped dish. He commissioned these glass-shaped
Commissioned,
dishes,
yeah. Yes.
but that no one has actually got a receipt that hasn't turned up. But maybe I'm sure there are contemporary reports saying...
I know for a fact that they were being sold close by in 1905.
Oh, okay. Well,
So I found some newspaper adverts, one in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is fairly close to Latrobe, it's about 100 miles away. They were selling them in 1906, which was a year before they were supposedly invented in Wilmington. There was some from 1904, 1905, 1906. You can see they start popping up in newspapers as being advertised.
Is it not possible, with all great scientific discoveries, or a lot of them, society as a whole has progressed to a certain place where it's inevitable that individuals come up with things simultaneously, and they'll be on the other side of the world.
Good call.
And is it possible
this
that...
is morphic resonance. This is all sheep rolling across cattle grids around the planet.
Well, it's sort of like the Dennis the Menace thing of when they were individually
It's
invented.
not. It's not like that at all. This is the same banana pudding that we're talking about.
It is kind of the same. So the Dennis the Menace thing, there had recently been a song called Dennis the Menace, right? It was like a music hall song, and kind of people came up with these characters probably influenced by that. In America, in the late 19th century, they started importing bananas from different countries, and they started selling them, so that was really big. They'd also started making ice cream more regularly because they had much better ways of making ice cream. So ice cream was new, bananas was new. It was the time for banana splits to be invented.
There we go.
It's
So
not
it is
rocket
like it's-
science, just merging them together.
Apology accepted, Andy.
Well, I don't think I've ever had a banana split.
Have you not?
No,
Really?
I've never had one.
Right.
Oh my
You're
god.
not missing out. I'd never choose one. It's one of the least good puddings.
Yeah, but as a child, you
child.
must have been given them because it's a way to
Yeah.
make you eat bananas.
I read that in the UK they're known as the banana longboat, which I
Yes.
like as well. But
I've
apparently,
never heard that.
Me neither.
I think it was only in Wimpy,
Right.
in the restaurant chain Wimpy.
Okay. There was one other thing that I mentioned earlier. The Soda Fountain magazine reckoned that the banana split was invented in Boston. There was an ice cream convention in 1905, and there was a guy called Stinson Thomas who supposedly invented it, but Boston has since ceded its title to this place in Pennsylvania.
Very noble of Boston.
Yeah.
There was even a claim I read that it was invented by someone called Letty Lally in 1904. I read this was a claim that she'd invented the banana split, and people were claiming this back in the 50s. But historians have since concluded, so don't panic at Wilmington La Trobe, that she actually invented the banana royale, which I was not familiar with, but it's like a crap banana split where you chop the banana the wrong way.
You chop the banana across the waist rather than dissecting it top to bottom.
Yeah, but multiple times, like waist, neck, knees.
And,
Oh,
do you
right.
put ice cream in it still?
Yeah, and you put ice cream. Otherwise, it's just a chopped banana.
It seems pointless, right?
Yeah, it just seems mad.
we love inventing words.
I know, but you're not going to be in a restaurant going, I see banana split on the menu. Do you do banana royale?
I'm sorry, the chef can't
We
do
don't
that.
we don't have the crockery for it. I'm so sorry.
That reminds me of when. So that could be the case if your bananas come ready split, couldn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I used to work in a restaurant, and we used to have scrambled eggs that came in a carton. And so we would make scrambled eggs in the morning because, you didn't have to scramble them yourself. They came ready scrambled. But then people would come in and say, can I have a boiled egg instead? And you'd have to say, we don't have any eggs. And they're like, well, what's this in front of me?
Oh, that's so funny. Here's another variant of it. Have you heard of the human banana split?
Oh, disgusting. You cut a human in half.
That's correct.
Vegetable.
Oh, I know what you're doing here.
What?
Is it the fact that we share 60% of our DNA with bananas?
No, you've made a huge reach from the fact that I make huge reaches all the time.
But that makes us a literal banana split, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
Not really.
I'll support
Not
it
unless
then.
you were to clone a human and a banana together.
That was
Oh,
the
that's
original
an
draft
exception.
of Jeff Goldblum's The Fly. Is a banana gets thrown into the machine at the last minute, and he comes out in a banana costume. No, this is. It's a practice more than a dessert. It's where some people throw bananas at you, and then other people pour whipped cream and chocolate over you, and it's kind of a.
Is it a sex thing?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's more of a prank than a.
Okay.
I've only found evidence of it happening twice.
Feels like
in
an
human-
OnlyFans kind of thing, doesn't it?
I'm sure it will be like within half an hour of the show going out.
Yeah. We'll have
Once
hundreds of thousands of people watching.
once it happened to some guy who was raising money for charity. They sort of said, "I'll send in videos of your human banana split being made," and another
Okay.
time it was Gordon Ramsay happened to him.
It's not like a franchise yet, is it? It hasn't become a universally known.
It's not as
phenomenon.
popular as the banana split.
No,
the original.
No. And I don't think it will be. So I think the reason they came about was really because of the popularity of soda fountains, right? Which is such an American thing that we don't really have. And they were basically there because people would go to the drugstore and they wanted to cure stuff that they had. And people believed at the time that carbonated water. Yeah, I'm just slipping in and out.
Just
brilliant.
like Andy's from Guatemala, Anna's from Boston.
I've got some Bostonian blood. People would go to the pharmacy and they had these fountains which would give them fizzy water, which people thought was very curative at the time.
Like Coca-Cola was a curative thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then they'd mix it up by giving them flavors and like Coca-Cola and stuff, and then they'd start adding stuff to these to make them more appealing, and that's where the sundaes came about, and that's where the banana split came about, and that's why Strickler was a pharmacist, because he worked in a pharmacy and he thought, how do I get more people to my soda fountains?
Yeah. He was a jerk, wasn't he?
He was a jerk. Yeah, a soda jerk.
That's what they called them, soda jerks.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was a pun on the word clerk. Clerk.
Yeah.
So someone who works in a pharmacy might be a clerk. And then your guy who was kind of jerking down the
handle
handle to kind of make the ice cream, he would be jerking that down, so he would be a soda jerk.
I didn't know anything about soda fountains and soda jerks. Maybe seen them in a couple of films and things like this. But there are so many. Yeah, like Pepsi and Coca-Cola were the next stage where you got pre-made syrup. Because before that, everyone had their own recipes, and individual soda jerks would have their own things. Cocaine was legal in these until about 1914.
Yeah, often you'd drop some cocaine in, wouldn't you, to the soda?
A small amount, obviously.
Right.
But,
It's like cocktails, weren't they? Really?
yeah.
A bit like that.
And that was a kind of golden age of like, crazy different recipes before the sort of more uniform, like really popular big drinks came in.
Okay.
But okay, I
It's
got
like
a
the
few.
Cambrian explosion of ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a slightly smaller time frame.
That's the thing which happened in the Tree of Life, isn't it? I'm only vaguely aware of the Cambrian explosion.
I just know a lot of animals came with lots of weird arms coming off their heads and
it was
stuff.
exactly like that. So, okay, I wanted to tell you a few of the...
What animals have arms coming off their heads?
Unsuccessful ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
the ones that died out.
Well, do you want to hear a few that have died out? Okay.
These
of the ice
creams.
creams.
These are ice creams and ice creamy drinks. So, the black cow was
Milk.
ice cream. I'll give you that.
Guinness.
Chocolate syrup and root beer. Pretty close.
sounds
Yeah.
Okay,
That sounds
nice,
good.
Yeah.
Twist it, choke it, and make it cackle.
Well, I'd rather do it after the show. Twist it, choke it, and make it cackle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you had to kill your own chicken and then they put that in?
Well, you had to put an egg in it, so kind
Wow.
of close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Okay, but there were also, for the winter, there were hot sodas. Because obviously, selling cold, icy sodas is very unpopular in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So they invented a load of hot drinks to go with these machines. So there was hot eggnog, hot mint juleps, and if you guys get any of the ingredients in this, I'll give you a big smile and praise.
You almost went for 1,000 points then. But it's like, I can't give them 1,000 imaginary points. That would be terrible.
Oh, points. I
Mad.
thought pounds. I was hearing pounds.
I wavered between points and pounds and thought, I don't want to give either away. The reeking smatch.
Reeking smash.
What are the ingredients?
Spinach.
No.
It reeks. So
cinnamon.
kimchi.
Oh, classic 1950s
Yeah.
American soda joke
Korean
ingredient.
import-export.
Okay, the reeking smash. This sounds like the worst drink I can possibly imagine.
Water, some kind of water.
I'm not going to give you that, actually. No. Clam juice, cream, and ginger.
Clam juice, cream.
just
and
So
ginger.
close with cinnamon.
It just sounds absolutely
sounds rank.
foul.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not a good combination.
Yeah, it's so weird to think why Coca-Cola took off in an environment where you could get a nice reeking smash.
Imagine if we were all drinking reeking smash now.
Just very quickly, I was looking into other kinds of banana splits, and one that I'd not actually ever heard of was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. We were
The
talking
banana splits.
the
you
banana
hadn't heard
splits.
of?
Yeah, it kind of.
Wow.
It's kind of like passed me by, and it, I mean,
That's
it didn't.
huge.
It didn't last too long. It was 1968 to 1970. There was a syndication that went on a bit later.
Yeah, can I just say also, I wasn't alive in those years.
Yes.
They did repeat it quite well.
They did. Yeah. It was syndicated from 70 to 82, but obviously it's been on TV ever since, and who knows in this country when. But it was cancelled. So they made a movie in 2019, the Banana Splits movie, and it's amazing because this was a kids' TV show. The plot line of this movie is that the Banana Splits are in studio and they're recording their show where they discovered they're about to be cancelled. The movie is about the murder spree that the Banana Splits go on, killing everyone inside the studio because they're furious about the upcoming cancellation. And
Are
it was
they
rated.
actually banana splits? Because I don't know how they would murder anyone.
They were
What are
like
they?
huge sort of bear. Were they bears?
Yeah,
Or
they
they
were
were like big animals.
Big
and
animals.
Okay.
Exactly.
Who
Yeah.
played in a band. It sounds like Alpha Papa.
Oh,
Yeah, it does sound like that.
The
which
Alan
is
Partridge.
an amazingly good film.
It is
I
so
haven't
good.
seen that, but yeah, it was rated R, I believe, and this is
Wow.
yeah.
What?
So a lot of people were furious because their childhood classic had come back, and they couldn't take their kids to it.
It's
'cause
turned
it was
into
now-
Scream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know when Bob Marley was accused of plagiarising that?
that TV show.
Yeah, he was accused of plagiarising it for Buffalo Soldier, and it's the bit that in the theme tune that says "tra la la," and they
Tra la
shout.
la 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 la. Tra la 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 la.
Oh my days!
Oh,
That's the banana splits. I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Who do you say? Bob Dylan.
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley. I don't know any Bob Marley
Dude.
songs.
Buffalo Soldier. Well,
Yeah.
obviously it's exactly the same tune. I mean, it's a very simple tune, and it's almost certain he didn't plagiarise it. And he has been
Really?
people who represent him have been asked about it. And
I mean,
one of
that
his,
sounded bang on. I gotta say.
it's
I'm on
similar.
the side of the banana splits.
Yeah.
On this
Well,
one.
a friend of Bob said he was a very serious man, and I doubt very much he had come across something
Well,
like the
a friend
banana
of
splits.
Snorky from the Banana Splits said that bastard stole our song.
I've got one final thing about soda fountains and
Yeah, go on.
who
Okay.
killed the soda fountain, right?
Ooh.
So this is from a piece in the New York Times talking about why this declined. Because they were huge. They were where people socialized. They were where people hung out. They're a big business as well. So there's a theory. It was whoever invented the drive-in restaurant, which then was the next huge thing.
Yeah.
There's a theory it was F.D. Roosevelt who repealed prohibition. There's another theory, and this is all from the New York Times piece about it. There's a guy called William Painter. Okay, William Painter was the person who patented the crimped metal bottle cap. And so that made it possible.
I thought Willie Painter was the guy who invented the camouflage condom.
Very good.
Sorry. As you were saying.
What's the word? Sorry, what is that?
You know the crimped metal bottle cap, like on a glass bottle of Coke.
Yeah.
That bottle cap is metal, but it's also got
it.
this kind of
Yes.
like ruffles around the edge, the
Yeah.
crimps. So that made it possible to standardize drinks, and he actually invented that in around the first decade of the 20th
And it meant
century.
that you could buy 1,000 of them and keep them in a warehouse
Exactly.
rather than each time someone making a new one.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting.
The only reason I mentioned this guy, William Painter, is because I thought I'd try and find out other stuff about his life and work.
Yeah.
He invented a load of different things, including, and I can find no more details about this, an ejector seat for trains.
Brilliant.
And it doesn't say whether it's for the driver or for the passengers.
Must be the driver.
Imagine if every single passenger had. You see them flying into the air. 300 people. One last thing.
Yeah.
Did you know that Liz Truss's mum used to regularly dress up as a banana?
No.
Remind us who Liz Truss is.
Sorry. For any international or British listeners, Liz Truss was the person who was momentarily Prime Minister of the country a very short while ago.
And she's the second most successful member of her family by the sound of things. Wow.
This actually came out in a book that was famously released, a book that's called Out of the Blue. Well, it was called Out of the Blue, The Inside Story of Liz Truss and Her Explosive Rise to Power, and it had to be retitled, that book, Out of the Blue, The Inside Story of the Unexpected Rise and Rapid Fall of Liz Truss. But yeah, her mum was a big campaigner for various things. So she moved to Eastern Europe in the 1970s to try out life under communism, for instance. Yeah. And she wanted to promote fair trade in Leeds in the 1970s, and she did this by making herself a bright yellow banana costume and wandering around in it.
Wow.
And Liz Truss would say she'd go into the supermarket and the kids would be like,
Sounds great.
saw
Why
your
did
mum
Liz
just a
Truss
banana
not
again.
bring this up?
If she brought that up, yeah, I would be more.
Because she kept saying she was from Leeds. She couldn't stop saying she went to school in Leeds. I think I'd be saying my mum used to dress as a
Do you
banana.
think you would? I think that's really on the cusp of, is it going to work or is it going to ruin
I
me?
suppose the Tory voters are not going to love the idea that she was going to live under communist governments in Eastern Europe.
You could leave out that part.
Or interested in fair trade.
And Liz Truss, she admired Margaret Thatcher, didn't she? And Thatcher used to work in ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
So if her mum got together with Thatcher, we could have had a banana split.
A human banana split.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Okay, that's it. That is all of our facts. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in contact with any of us about the things that we've said over the course of this podcast, we can all be found on our Twitter accounts. I'm on @Schreiberland, James,
At James Harkin.
Andy,
At Andrew Hunter M.
and Anna.
You can email podcast@qi.com.
Yep, or you can go to our group account, which is @NoSuchThing, or our website, nosuchthingasafish.com. All the previous episodes are up there, so do check them out. Also, bits of merch are up there. If you want to get some in time for Christmas, do it now. Otherwise, just come back here next week, where we will have another episode waiting for you of No Such Thing as a Fish. See you then. Goodbye.